The envelope trembled in my hands as Richard's voice echoed from the kitchen. "Sign the papers, Claire. You're nothing without me. You never were." I stood frozen in the marble foyer of our Boston penthouse, the divorce documents heavy as stones in my grip. Outside, the October rain hammered against floor-to-ceiling windows, each drop a tiny fist demanding entry. 48 years old, and I was being discarded like yesterday's newspaper. 22 years of marriage, reduced to 17 pages of legal jargon and a wet signature line. "Did you hear me?" Richard appeared in the doorway, his Brooks Brothers suit crisp despite the late hour. His silver hair, the distinguished kind that made clients trust him, caught the light from the chandelier we'd picked out together in Paris. That felt like someone else's life now. Without my name, my connections, my firm's reputation, you'll be lucky to get a job managing a coffee shop. The words should have cut deeper. Maybe a week ago they would have. But today I'd received another envelope. One he didn't know about. One that sat in my leather tote, the seal already broken, the contents already memorized. "I'll sign," I whispered, my voice steadier than my hands. "But I need tonight to read everything." He checked his Rolex, the one I'd saved 6 months of my teaching salary to buy him, back when I believed in us. "You have until morning. My lawyer wants this done. Jennifer and I are flying to Barbados tomorrow afternoon." Jennifer, his 28-year-old associate, the woman who'd been working late with him for the past 18 months, the woman who'd answered his phone last month when he'd stepped into the shower, the woman who'd giggled when I'd asked for my husband. I'd hung up without a word. Sometimes silence screams louder than accusations. Richard poured himself a scotch, Macallan 25, the bottle I'd bought for his birthday last year, and settled into his leather chair by the fireplace. His throne, his domain, the place where he'd built his empire while I'd built our home, while I'd raised our daughter, while I'd smiled at his clients and hosted his dinner parties and pretended I didn't notice the lipstick stains that weren't my shade. "You know," he said, swirling the amber liquid, "I'm being generous. The prenup was airtight. You could walk away with nothing, but I'm giving you the Cape House and a small settlement, enough to start over. Find yourself a nice little apartment. Maybe take up watercolors or something." His condescension tasted like ash in my mouth, but I nodded, smiled, played the part I'd perfected over 2 decades, the grateful wife, the woman who knew her place, the woman who'd given up her PhD program in economics, because Richard needed a wife who could entertain, not one buried in spreadsheets and market theories. That woman died today, at 3:47 p.m., right when I'd opened that second envelope in the parking lot of our daughter's college, hands shaking so badly I could barely unfold the letter inside. The letterhead was embossed, expensive, the kind that meant something. Thompson & Associates cordially invites Claire Mitchell to assume the role of Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Financial Group, effective November 1st. Your strategic vision and 15 years of advisory work have not gone unnoticed. We are prepared to offer you a comprehensive package including... The numbers had blurred together. 7 figures. 8, if you counted the signing bonus and stock options. The corner office I'd helped design when I'd consulted for them under a pseudonym, a side project Richard had dismissed as Claire's little hobby. The company I'd secretly helped rebuild from bankruptcy to market leader, through whispered advice to old colleagues, midnight spreadsheets, and strategic emails sent from coffee shops instead of our home office. Richard had never known. He'd stopped listening to me so long ago. Now, watching him in his chair, so certain of his superiority, I felt something cold and sharp crystallize in my chest. Not anger, something cleaner, clarity. "I'll have these signed by morning," I told him, gathering the divorce papers. "First thing. Good girl." He didn't even look up from his phone, already texting Jennifer about tomorrow's flight. I climbed the stairs to the bedroom we hadn't shared in 6 months, each step measured and calm. In my study, the small room he'd let me have because it had the worst light and the oldest furniture, I spread the divorce papers across the desk. Next to them, I placed the other letter, the one that changed everything. Outside, Boston glittered like scattered diamonds. Somewhere in those lights, my future waited. A future Richard couldn't imagine. A future I'd built in secret, in silence, in stolen moments when he thought I was just his pretty wife planning dinner parties and charity galas. Tomorrow, He'd learn the truth. Tomorrow, when the Boston Globe hit the newsstands with my face on the business section. Tomorrow, when his clients started calling, curious about why his soon-to-be ex-wife was being named CEO of one of the Northeast's fastest-growing financial firms. Tomorrow, when he realized that while he'd been busy underestimating me, I'd been busy becoming someone he could never control again. But tonight I'd let him think he'd won. Let him sleep soundly next to his packed suitcase and his plane tickets to paradise. Let him dream of his new life with his young girlfriend and his untouchable empire. I picked up my pen, the Mont Blanc he'd given me for our 10th anniversary with my initials engraved wrong, and prepared to sign away a marriage that had ended long before either of us had the courage to admit it. The rain kept falling. Thunder rumbled somewhere over the harbor. And Claire Mitchell, the woman who was nothing without him, allowed herself the smallest smile. My name is Claire Elizabeth Mitchell, though I was born Claire Elizabeth Brooks in a small town called Westfield, Massachusetts, where my father ran a hardware store and my mother taught piano lessons from our living room. I learned early that success was quiet work, steady hands, and showing up when everyone else had gone home. I was 26 when I met Richard at a fundraiser for Boston University, where I was finishing my PhD in economics. He was 32, already a rising star at his father's law firm, and he looked at me like I was the most fascinating woman in the world, for exactly 6 months. Then he looked at me like I was beautiful wallpaper, pleasant enough, but hardly worth studying. The marriage happened fast. The pregnancy happened faster. Caroline arrived 10 months after our wedding, pink-faced and screaming, and Richard's mother informed me with ice in her voice that Mitchell women raise their own children, dear. We don't believe in nannies. So I'd set aside my dissertation. Just for a year, I told myself. Just until Caroline was older. Just until things settled. Just until became 2 decades. I want you to understand something. I didn't hate my life. I loved being Caroline's mother. I loved the quiet mornings when she was small, reading her stories while Richard left for work before sunrise. I loved teaching her to ride a bike in the public garden, her training wheels leaving tracks in the spring grass. I loved the way she'd climb into my lap, smelling like apple shampoo and playground dirt, and tell me about her day in that earnest, breathless way children have of making every moment sound like an adventure. But there were nights. God, there were nights when I'd stand at our bedroom window overlooking Beacon Hill and remember the woman I'd been, the woman who'd published 2 papers on emerging market strategies before she was 25, the woman whose professors had said she'd revolutionize the field, the woman who'd disappeared into a role that looked perfect from the outside, but felt like wearing shoes 2 sizes too small. Richard never understood. How could he? His world expanded while mine contracted. His calendar filled with client dinners and conference trips, while mine revolved around school pickups and doctor's appointments, and making sure his shirts were pressed just right. "You have everything, Claire," he'd say when I tried to explain the restlessness. "Beautiful home, beautiful daughter. What more could you want?" He said it like my dreams were an insult to his provision. So I'd stopped talking about them. Stopped mentioning the articles I read late at night about market trends and corporate strategy. Stopped bringing up the online courses I'd take while Caroline did homework. Stopped saying anything that might remind him I had a mind that craved more than coordinating curtains and planning birthday parties. I became an expert at being what he needed. The trophy wife who could work a room. The devoted mother who volunteered at every school event. The woman who made his life effortless, while erasing herself in the process. But here's what Richard never knew. I never actually stopped. I just learned to hide it. It started small. A former colleague from university reached out 7 years ago, asking for advice on a merger. I'd helped, off the books, using my maiden name for the consultation emails. The deal had gone through flawlessly. He'd recommended me to someone else, then someone else, then someone else. Soon I had a whole shadow career, companies seeking second opinions, executives needing strategic advice, firms wanting fresh perspectives without the hefty consulting fees. I'd work from coffee shops while Richard thought I was at book club. I'd analyze spreadsheets at midnight while he slept soundly beside me. I'd send emails at dawn before Caroline woke up. Thompson & Associates had been my biggest client for 15 years. They'd known me only as E. Brooks, my middle name and maiden name combined. Professional, distant, brilliant, they'd said. Uncanny, how well I understood their market. They never knew E. Brooks was a housewife in Beacon Hill. They never knew E. Brooks organized her analysis sessions around tennis lessons and grocery shopping. They never knew E. Brooks had saved their company from bankruptcy 3 times through strategies implemented so subtly, they thought they designed them themselves. Until 6 months ago, when their aging CEO decided to retire, when he insisted on meeting E. Brooks in person before making any succession decisions, when I'd sat in that conference room in my best suit, watching their faces when I'd walked in, watching the shock, the confusion, the dawning recognition. "You're a woman," one of the board members had blurted. "You're the woman married to Richard Mitchell," another had said slowly. And their CEO, Thomas Hendricks, 72 years old and sharp as broken glass, had started laughing. Deep, booming laughs that made the water glasses shake. "You magnificent liar," he'd said, but his eyes were delighted. "You beautiful, magnificent liar." "How long?" 15 years, I'd admitted. "And your husband?" "Doesn't know." More laughter. Then serious faces. Then questions. Hard ones. About my commitment. My availability. My ability to step out of the shadows and lead publicly. Visibly. With my real name attached to every decision. I'd thought of Caroline, thriving at Harvard. I'd thought of Richard, who'd stopped wearing his wedding ring 6 months ago. I'd thought of the woman I'd been at 26, full of fire and ambition, and dreams she'd been told to postpone. "When do I start?" I'd asked. Now, standing in my study with divorce papers in one hand and a CEO contract in the other, I could see my whole life as if from above. The girl from Westfield, the promising student, the devoted wife, the invisible consultant, the woman about to step into the light. Richard thought he was setting me free tomorrow. He had no idea I'd already freed myself. The signs had been there for 18 months, though I'd pretended not to see them. Richard coming home smelling like unfamiliar perfume. Working late, becoming his default excuse. The way his phone never left his pocket anymore. Always face down, always locked. But I'd ignored it all. Why? Because acknowledging his affair would mean acknowledging that our marriage was over. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. Not until I had my own foundation to stand on. The real betrayal, the one that cut deeper than Jennifer's lipstick on his collar, happened 3 months ago at the annual Mitchell family dinner. Richard's parents hosted these events at their estate in Newton, gathering the whole family to celebrate nothing in particular except their own legacy. Lawyers, all of them, judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys. The Mitchell name was Boston legal royalty, and they never let you forget it. I'd worn the dress Richard's mother had approved. Navy blue, pearls, nothing flashy. I'd brought the wine they preferred. Expensive French, never Italian. I'd rehearsed the small talk, the gracious smiles, the way to fade into the background while making everyone feel welcome. Claire, Richard's sister, Margaret, air-kissed both my cheeks, her Botox-smooth face showing nothing. "Still keeping my baby brother in line?" "Someone has to," I'd said lightly, the script I'd perfected. Dinner was in the formal dining room, beneath crystal chandeliers and portraits of Mitchell ancestors who'd helped write Massachusetts law. 24 people around a table that could seat 30. Caroline was home from Harvard for the weekend, sitting beside me, quietly uncomfortable in the dress her grandmother had sent her. Richard sat at the opposite end, next to his father. Man talk territory. Business territory. The place where decisions got made while the wives discussed charity work and vacation homes. "So Claire," Richard's mother began, her voice cutting through the low conversations, "we've been meaning to ask. Now that Caroline is away at school, what exactly do you do with your time?" The table went quiet. All eyes on me. This was a test. It was always a test. "I've been consulting," I'd said carefully. "Economic analysis, mostly. Strategic planning for..." "Consulting?" Richard's laugh cut me off. "Mother, Claire helps her friends budget for kitchen renovations. She calls it consulting." Laughter rippled around the table. Polite. Knowing. The kind that said, "Oh, Claire, always trying." My face burned. Caroline's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard. "Actually," I tried again, "I've been working with several firms on..." "Darling." Richard's voice was gentle, patronizing. The tone you'd use with a child who'd insisted they could fly. "We all need hobbies. Mother does watercolors. Margaret collects art. If you want to call helping out your little friends consulting, that's lovely. It's not a hobby," I'd said, hearing my voice rise despite my best efforts. "I've been doing serious work. Real analysis. I've helped companies. What companies? His father leaned forward, genuinely curious in the way lawyers get when they smell weakness. Which firms? I'd frozen. Couldn't tell them. Not without revealing years of secret work. Not without exposing how much I'd hidden. How much I'd needed to hide to be taken seriously. See? Richard raised his wine glass. It's sweet that you want to feel useful, Claire. But let's be honest. You left your PhD 20 years ago. The business world has moved on. You're a wonderful mother and a gracious hostess, but strategic planning? That's a bit of a stretch. Margaret had nodded sympathetically. It's hard, isn't it? When the children leave, you build your whole life around them, and suddenly you have to find new purpose. Have you thought about volunteering more? The symphony is always looking for board members' wives. Board members' wives. Not board members. Wives. I'd sat there, surrounded by Richard's family, watching them dismiss 20 years of work they couldn't see, couldn't imagine, couldn't believe a woman like me capable of. The worst part? Richard had believed it. His contempt wasn't an act for his family. It was genuine. He truly thought I was nothing more than a pleasant accessory to his life. A woman who'd given up her career not because she'd had to, but because she'd had nothing worth giving up. I'm going to the restroom, I'd whispered to Caroline, excusing myself before the tears could come. In the bathroom, all marble and gold fixtures, I'd gripped the sink and stared at my reflection. 48 years old, invisible, dismissed, mocked in my own home by people who thought they knew me. That's when I'd decided. That's when the anger had crystallized into something cold and clear and unbreakable. I would take the CEO position. I would step into the light. Not to prove them wrong, though that would be satisfying, but to prove myself right. To reclaim the woman I'd buried. To show Caroline that sometimes you have to fight in silence before you can win out loud. When I'd returned to the table, Margaret was holding court about her latest charity project. Richard was checking his phone, probably texting Jennifer. His mother was critiquing the caterer's choice of dessert wine. None of them looked at me. Why would they? I was just Claire, just the wife, just the woman who'd never amount to anything beyond her husband's shadow. I'd smiled through the rest of dinner, nodded at the right moments, laughed at the appropriate jokes, played my part perfectly. But inside, I'd already left. Inside, I was already counting down the days until I could stop pretending, until I could watch their faces when they realized exactly who they'd underestimated. 3 months later, sitting in my study with divorce papers unsigned, I could still taste that dinner's humiliation, still feel the weight of their dismissal. Tomorrow, they'd be reading about me in the newspaper. Tomorrow, they'd be calling Richard, asking how he could have missed this. Tomorrow, they'd realize that Claire's little hobby had been more successful than any Mitchell had dreamed. But tonight, I savored the secret. I need you to understand how we got here. Not just the affair, not just the divorce, but how a woman loses herself so completely she becomes a ghost in her own life. 22 years ago, I was brilliant. I don't say that with arrogance. I say it as fact. My thesis advisor at Boston University, Dr. Patricia Chen, had called my work on emerging market patterns revolutionary. At 24, I'd published papers that made tenured professors take notice. At 25, I'd been offered positions at 3 different consulting firms, all with starting salaries that would have made my parents weep with pride. Then I met Richard at that fundraiser. He was magnetic, successful. He looked at me like I was a puzzle worth solving, and God help me, I loved being seen that way. After years of being the nerdy girl who lived in spreadsheets and theory, being wanted by someone like Richard felt like winning. The courtship was whirlwind. Roses delivered to my tiny apartment. Dinners at restaurants I couldn't pronounce. Weekends at his family's Cape House, where the ocean stretched forever, and Richard would hold my hand on the beach, telling me about the future we'd build together. You could consult from home, he'd said when I'd mentioned the job offers. Work your own hours. That way when we have kids, you'll have flexibility. It made sense. It felt modern, progressive even. Why shouldn't I design my own career around family life? So I'd turned down the consulting offers, finished my PhD program, or almost. I was 3 months from defending my dissertation when I found out I was pregnant. Morning sickness made it impossible to focus. Richard's mother's voice echoed in my head. Mitchell women raise their own children. You can finish after the baby, Richard assured me. It's just a temporary pause. Caroline arrived, and she was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and lungs that could wake the entire neighborhood. I fell in love with her instantly, completely, in a way that rewrote every priority I'd ever had. My dissertation sat in a drawer, just temporarily, just until she was older, just until things settled down. But babies don't settle. They grow. They need you more, not less. And Richard's career was exploding. He was making junior partner. He needed a wife who could entertain clients, host dinner parties, represent the Mitchell name with grace and sophistication. "Could you maybe not talk about economics tonight?" he'd say before events. "It makes the other wives uncomfortable. They feel like you're showing off." So I'd learn to talk about other things. Recipes, schools, vacation spots, safe things, boring things. Things that made me disappear a little more each day. By the time Caroline was 5, I'd forgotten what it felt like to be the woman who'd awed professors. I'd become the woman who coordinated carpool schedules and organized bake sales. The woman who knew every teacher's name and every child's food allergy. The woman who ran a household so smoothly that Richard never had to think about it. And I was good at it. That's the thing nobody tells you. You can be brilliant at being invisible. You can perfect the art of making everyone else's life effortless, while your own dreams gather dust. But I never stopped reading. Late at night, after Richard fell asleep and Caroline was tucked in, I'd devour economic journals and market analyses. I'd follow trends. I'd build hypothetical portfolios in notebooks I hid in my closet. I'd stay sharp in secret, like a blade kept wrapped in cloth. When Caroline was 8, my old colleague Marcus reached out. His firm was considering a merger, and he remembered my work on market consolidation. Would I look at the numbers? Just as a favor? I'd spent 3 nights analyzing their spreadsheets, while Richard snored beside me, oblivious. I'd sent Marcus a 20-page analysis under my maiden name. The merger went through flawlessly. They made $40 million. Marcus sent me a bottle of champagne and a note. "You still have it. If you ever want back in, call me." I never called, but I kept the note. More requests trickled in. Always through old colleagues. Always confidential. Always using variations of my maiden name. E. Brooks, Elizabeth Brooks, Claire Brooks. Never Mitchell. That name belonged to Richard's wife, and Richard's wife didn't do real work. The double life became routine. I'd analyze corporate strategies while waiting for Caroline's dance class to end. I'd write market predictions in coffee shops while other mothers gossiped about school drama. I'd send emails at 5 a.m. before anyone woke. Advice that would shape million-dollar decisions while I was still in my bathrobe. Richard never suspected. Why would he? In his mind, I was exactly where I belonged, managing his home, raising his daughter, supporting his career. He'd see me on my laptop and assume I was shopping online or planning dinner parties. "Still surfing Pinterest?" He'd joke, kissing my forehead absently as he left for work. "Something like that," I'd reply, while in front of me were spreadsheets that would save a company from bankruptcy. Thompson and Associates became my white whale. They were bleeding money, suffering from terrible leadership, and nobody could figure out why. They'd hired 3 different consulting firms, all of whom had given them generic advice that made things worse. Then they'd hired E. Brooks. I'd spent 6 months studying them, learning their culture, understanding their market position, and then I'd sent them a strategy so comprehensive, so tailored, so exactly what they needed that within a year they were profitable again. Within 3 years, they were thriving. Thomas Hendricks, their CEO, had tried to meet E. Brooks a dozen times. I'd always refused. "My work speaks for itself," I'd written. "I prefer to remain anonymous." Until 6 months ago, when he'd made it a condition of succession planning. "I'm retiring," his email said, "and I want E. Brooks to replace me. But I need to look this person in the eye first." So I'd walked into that boardroom, watching their faces as they realized their brilliant consultant was someone's housewife, watching their assumptions shatter. "How long have you been doing this?" Thomas had asked. 15 years, I'd admitted. In secret. Why secret? I'd looked at him, this 72-year-old man who'd built empires and commanded respect, and told him the truth, because nobody would have listened if they'd known I was Richard Mitchell's wife. He'd nodded slowly. "They would have assumed you were playing, that it was a hobby, that you couldn't possibly be serious." "Exactly. And now? Now I'm ready to stop hiding." Sitting in my study tonight, I thought about all those years, all those late nights, all those secrets. Caroline was grown now. Brilliant, independent, at Harvard studying law because she wanted to, not because anyone expected her to. She was everything I'd hoped she'd be. And me? I was finally becoming everything I'd promised myself I could be. The morning after the family dinner, I'd driven Caroline back to Harvard. The October morning was crisp, the trees along the Mass Pike burning gold and crimson. She'd been quiet in the passenger seat, staring out the window, her jaw tight in a way that reminded me of myself. "Mom," she finally said, as we crossed into Cambridge, "why do you let them talk to you like that?" My hands gripped the steering wheel. "Like what?" "Like you're stupid. Like you're nothing." Her voice cracked. "Dad does it all the time, but last night, watching the whole family treat you like you're just some decorative object, it made me sick." I pulled over into a gas station parking lot, put the car in park, turned to face my daughter, who was crying now, angry tears that she swiped away with her sleeve. "Sweetheart, don't." She shook her head. "Don't defend him. Don't tell me it's complicated. I'm not a child anymore, Mom. I see it. I've always seen it. The way he dismisses you. The way he acts like raising me was your only accomplishment. The way he treats you like you're lucky to have him instead of the other way around." Every word was a mirror held up to truth I'd hidden from. "You were getting your PhD when you got pregnant with me, weren't you?" Caroline pressed. "Grandma Chen told me. She said you were the most talented student she'd ever advised. She said you could have changed the field, and you gave it all up for him. For me. For this family that doesn't even respect you. I don't regret having you," I said fiercely. "Not for 1 second. But you regret everything else." It wasn't a question. We sat in silence, traffic humming past us, the morning sun harsh against my eyes. "I'm going to tell you something," I finally said. "But you can't tell your father. Not yet." And I told her everything. The consulting work, the secret career, the CEO position I'd been offered, the divorce papers waiting at home. Caroline's tears dried as I talked. Her expression shifted from shock to awe to something fiercer. Pride, maybe. Or vindication. "When do you start?" she asked when I finished. "November 1st. 2 weeks from tomorrow. And Dad has no idea?" "None." She started laughing. Huge, gasping laughs that turned into sobs that turned back into laughter. "Oh my God. Oh my God, Mom. He's going to lose his mind. Probably. Good." She grabbed my hand. "Good. He deserves it. They all deserve it." I dropped her at her dorm, watched her walk away with her shoulders straight and her head high, and felt something shift in my chest. Caroline knew. My daughter knew who I really was, and she was proud. The week that followed was normal on the surface. Richard and I moved around each other like polite strangers. He'd stopped sleeping in our bed entirely, preferring his study with its leather sofa and his precious Scotch collection. I'd cook meals he barely touched. We'd exchange pleasantries about household logistics. 2 people waiting for the final curtain without acknowledging the theater was on fire. Then came the Thursday before everything changed. I was at the grocery store, Whole Foods on Beacon Street, the one where Boston's elite pretended they weren't shopping with the masses. I was in the produce section, examining avocados, when I heard the voice. Claire Mitchell." I turned. Jennifer, Richard's associate, his mistress, standing there in yoga pants and a tight sweater, her blonde hair perfect, her smile predatory. "I thought that was you." She approached, all false warmth. "Shopping for dinner?" My heart hammered. "Jennifer, listen." She moved closer, her voice dropping to something intimate, conspiratorial. "I know this is awkward, but I wanted to talk to you, woman to woman." I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, just stood there holding an avocado like it might anchor me to reality. "Richard and we didn't mean for this to happen, but you have to understand. He hasn't been happy for years. He said you two barely even talk anymore, that you've become more like roommates than spouses." Each word was a calculated strike, designed to wound, designed to make me small. He said, she paused, touched my arm with fake sympathy. He said you're a wonderful mother, a gracious hostess, but that there's nothing else there, that you gave up on growing, on being interesting, on being a partner to him. My vision blurred, not from tears, from rage. "He says you'll be fine," Jennifer continued, "that you'll probably find some nice man your own age who wants a simple life, but that he needs more, someone who challenges him, someone who understands his world." She said it all with a smile, with pity, with the absolute certainty that she'd won and I'd lost. I hope there's no hard feelings, she finished. Richard's been dreading this conversation. He's afraid you'll fall apart. But I told him, I said, Claire seems like a strong woman. I'm sure she'll land on her feet. I stood there, frozen, while shoppers moved around us, oblivious, while Jennifer waited for me to crumble, to cry, to give her the satisfaction of watching Richard's discarded wife collapse in the produce section. Instead, I smiled, set down the avocado, met her eyes. You're right, I said quietly. I will land on my feet. In fact, I already have. Confusion flickered across her perfect face. What? Tell Richard. I'll have those papers signed by tomorrow morning. Tell him he was right. I am ready to start over, to find a new challenge, something bigger than what we had. I walked away before she could respond, my hands shaking, my heart thundering, my mind screaming with humiliation and fury, and something else, something sharp and bright and absolutely certain. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard. The encounter played on loop in my mind. Her words, her pity, the absolute confidence that I was nothing, that I'd always be nothing. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, found the message from Thompson and Associates. Dear Ms. Mitchell, we are delighted to confirm your acceptance of the CEO position. The board would like to announce your appointment next Tuesday, November 1st. The Boston Globe has requested an exclusive interview and photo for their business section. Please confirm your availability. I typed my response with shaking fingers. Confirmed. Let's make the announcement Monday instead. First thing in the morning. The humiliation Jennifer had tried to drown me in became fuel, became fire, became the final push I needed to stop hiding. That night I signed the divorce papers. Every page, every clause, every line that promised to end a marriage that had been dead for years. And then I called Thomas Hendricks. I'm ready, I told him. I'm ready to go public. Sunday morning, Richard left for Barbados. I watched from the bedroom window as a car service pulled up, watched Jennifer bounce out to help him with his luggage, watched them kiss on the sidewalk like teenagers, like the past 22 years meant nothing. They didn't see me watching. They never looked up. After they left, I walked through the penthouse in silence, room by room, touching nothing, just observing. This place I'd decorated, maintained, perfected for 2 decades. These walls that held memories I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. In the kitchen, the copper pots I'd selected from that shop in Provence hung in precise rows. In the living room, the art we'd collected, or rather, that I'd collected while he'd nodded absently, glowed in the afternoon light. In Caroline's room, kept exactly as she'd left it, her debate trophies lined up like soldiers on parade. Everything was beautiful, perfect, dead. I made myself coffee, real coffee, the expensive Italian espresso Richard claimed to love but never actually drank, and sat in his leather chair by the fireplace, his throne, the place he held court, dispensed judgments, made pronouncements about my inadequacy. The leather creaked under my weight. It felt like sacrilege, like revolution. My phone buzzed. A message from Caroline. Dad just posted on Instagram from the airport. Him and her. I want to throw my phone into the Charles River. I typed back, don't. You'll need it tomorrow. Trust me. What happens tomorrow? Everything changes. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, I love you, Mom. I'm so proud of you. I stared at those words until they blurred. When was the last time Richard had said something like that? When was the last time he'd looked at me with anything other than dismissal or vague irritation? I couldn't remember. The awakening hadn't been sudden. It wasn't one moment of clarity. It was 1,000 tiny realizations accumulated over years, compressed into a decision I could no longer avoid. I realized I'd been waiting for permission, for Richard to notice me, to value me, to see that I was more than his supporting cast. I'd been performing for an audience of one who'd stopped watching years ago. I realized I'd taught Caroline terrible lessons by staying. That love means sacrifice. That marriage means erasure. That a woman's worth is measured by how well she serves her husband's ambitions while burying her own. I realized that the woman I'd been at 26, fierce and brilliant and unafraid, hadn't disappeared. She'd been hibernating, waiting, gathering strength in silence. Most importantly, I realized I didn't need Richard's approval to reclaim her. I spent Sunday preparing. Not just mentally, practically. I went through files, found documents, made lists. The Cape House Richard was generously giving me in the divorce. It was in my name only. I'd bought it with an inheritance from my grandmother. He just assumed it was community property. The investment accounts he thought he controlled? I'd been the one managing them for years, growing them from modest to substantial, through careful strategy he'd never questioned. The social connections he took credit for. Half of them were my college friends who tolerated him because of me. I made a list of every asset, every account, every connection, prepared myself for the battle I knew was coming. Richard would be blindsided by the CEO announcement, but he'd recover quickly. He was a lawyer. He'd fight. He'd try to claim credit, or worse, try to diminish it. Claire's always dabbled in economics, I could already hear him saying. She must have impressed someone with her amateur insights. Let him try. I had 15 years of documentation, emails, contracts, results. Proof that E. Brooks wasn't an amateur. She was the real thing. Evening fell, turning the penthouse golden, then purple, then dark. I didn't turn on the lights, just sat in Richard's chair, drinking his scotch, the Macallan I'd bought him, and thinking about tomorrow. The press release would go out at 8 a.m. Thompson and Associates would announce my appointment with full fanfare. The Boston Globe's business section would feature my photo, my credentials, my vision for the company's future. Richard would still be in Barbados. He'd probably find out from a client, or maybe from his father, who read the Globe religiously every morning. I imagined the phone call, the confusion, the denial, the slow, dawning horror. What do you mean Claire's been named CEO? Which Claire? My Claire? That's impossible. She couldn't. There must be some mistake. But there was no mistake. Only 20 years of underestimation coming due. I thought about Jennifer's words in the grocery store. He needs someone who challenges him, someone who understands his world. The irony was exquisite. I understood his world better than he did. I'd been operating in it, succeeding in it, while he'd been too blind to notice. He'd wanted a challenging partner. He'd had one. He'd just been too arrogant to see her. My phone buzzed again. Thomas Hendricks. Ready for tomorrow? The board is thrilled. The media response has been incredible. You're going to make history, Claire. I smiled in the darkness. I'm ready. Thank you for believing in me. We didn't believe in you. We knew you. There's a difference. See you at 8 a.m. sharp. I sat there until midnight, watching the city lights glitter like promises. Boston sprawled beneath me, full of possibility I'd spent 2 decades ignoring. No more. Tomorrow, I stepped into the light. Tomorrow, I stopped apologizing for being brilliant. Tomorrow, I reclaimed the life I'd deferred. The old Claire, Richard's Claire, would have been terrified, would have worried about what people would think, would have sought permission from every authority figure before making such a bold move. The new Claire, the real Claire, was done asking permission. I finished Richard's scotch, set the empty glass on his side table, and went to bed in the master bedroom for the first time in 6 months. The sheets were cool. The room was mine, and for the first time in years, I slept without the weight of someone else's expectations crushing my chest. Tomorrow, the world would learn who I really was. Tonight, I already knew. The newspaper hit the stands at 5 a.m. Monday morning. I knew, because I was awake to see it, had been awake since 3:30, running through my speech, checking my outfit, making sure every detail was perfect. The front page of the business section featured my photograph from last week's professional shoot. In it, I wore a charcoal suit, my hair styled simply, my expression confident but approachable. The headline read, "From Shadow to Spotlight, Claire Mitchell named CEO of Meridian Financial Group." Below the fold, a smaller headline, "Mystery Consultant E. Brooks Revealed as Boston Attorney's Wife." The article was thorough, fair. It detailed my academic credentials, the PhD I'd never finished, but whose research had been published and cited widely. It mentioned my 15 years consulting under a pseudonym. It quoted Thomas Hendricks calling me the most strategic mind in the industry. It listed my accomplishments at Meridian, the companies I'd saved, the markets I'd predicted, the deals I'd structured. And buried in the 4th paragraph, almost as an afterthought, Mitchell is married to Richard Mitchell, senior partner at Mitchell & Sons, one of Boston's most prestigious law firms. The couple has been married for 22 years and has one daughter, Caroline, a student at Harvard Law. I read it 3 times, drinking coffee in the pre-dawn darkness, before my phone exploded. First was Thomas. "You're going to be brilliant today. Remember, you've already earned this. Now just show them what we already know." Then Caroline. "Mom, Mom, Mom, I'm screaming. You look like a boss. I'm so proud I can't even function. Call me after." Then my old advisor, Dr. Chen. "I always knew you'd change the world, Claire. I just didn't realize you'd been doing it this whole time. Congratulations don't even begin to cover it." Then the messages started flooding. Old colleagues, college friends, people I'd worked with under my pseudonym who were only now making the connection. Text after text, email after email, all saying the same thing in different words. "I can't believe you were E. Brooks. I can't believe you did all this in secret. I can't believe you're her." Richard's first call came at 6:47 a.m. I watched my phone vibrate on the counter, his name flashing. Didn't answer. He called again at 6:49, again at 6:53. By 7 a.m., he'd called 12 times. Finally, a text. "What the hell is this? Call me now." I smiled and turned off my phone. At 7:30, I arrived at Meridian's headquarters in the financial district, a gleaming tower with views of the harbor. The lobby was already full of reporters, cameras, questions shouted as I walked past with security flanking me. "Ms. Mitchell, how long have you been consulting in secret? Ms. Mitchell, did your husband know about your career? Ms. Mitchell, what message do you have for women who think they have to choose between family and career?" I smiled, waved, said nothing. Just walked to the elevator with my head high and my shoulders back. Every inch the CEO they'd hired. The boardroom was packed. The entire executive team, the board members, legal counsel, PR representatives. Thomas Hendricks stood at the head of the table, beaming like a proud father. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "the woman who's going to lead us into the future." Applause. Genuine, warm, thunderous. I shook hands, accepted congratulations, made small talk. These people knew my work, respected it, valued it. Not one of them looked at me and thought housewife or hobby or amateur. They saw a CEO. The press conference at 8 a.m. was surreal. Cameras flashing, reporters taking notes. Me, standing at a podium with the Meridian logo behind me, addressing the media as the company's new leader. "I'm honored and humbled by this opportunity," I began, my voice steady, strong. "For 15 years, I've had the privilege of working with Meridian behind the scenes. Now, I'm thrilled to step into the light and lead this incredible team publicly." "Ms. Mitchell," a reporter called out, "you consulted under a pseudonym for over a decade. Why the secrecy?" I'd prepared for this question, knew it would come, had carefully crafted an answer that was truthful without being bitter. I wanted my work to speak for itself, I said simply. In the early 2000s, when I began consulting, there were still significant biases against women in finance, particularly those who'd taken time off for family. I used a pseudonym to ensure my analysis was judged on merit, not assumptions about my qualifications. "Did your family know about your consulting work?" My daughter knew I was involved in economic analysis. The full scope of my work remained private until recently. Translation. No, Richard had no idea, and I'd loved keeping it from him. More questions, more answers, all professional, polished, perfect. I was good at this. The performance, the messaging, the careful dance of saying everything without revealing too much. When the press conference ended, Thomas pulled me aside. "There's something you should see." He handed me his phone. On it was a text thread from Richard Mitchell's number to Thomas's personal cell. They'd been acquaintances through Boston legal circles. Richard's messages came in rapid fire, increasingly unhinged. "Thomas, what the hell is this? Claire doesn't have the experience for this position. You're making a massive mistake. She hasn't worked in the field for 20 years. Call me immediately. We need to discuss this before you embarrass yourself and her. I'm her husband. I know her capabilities. This is a disaster waiting to happen." Thomas had responded with one line. "Richard, I've worked with your wife for 15 years. I know her capabilities quite well. Congratulations on the divorce." I stared at that last line. "How did you—" "Your lawyer is my lawyer," Thomas said gently. "She mentioned you'd be finalizing things soon. I hope I didn't overstep." "No." I handed back his phone. "No, that was perfect." By noon, the story had gone viral. Not just local news, national. Housewife reveals secret career as CEO was trending on Twitter. Think pieces were already being written about gender bias in business, about women who hide their ambitions to avoid judgment, about the invisible labor women perform that goes unrecognized. My story had touched a nerve. Hundreds of women were sharing their own experiences, the PhDs they'd abandoned, the careers they'd minimized, the brilliance they'd hidden to make their husbands comfortable. I'd thought this was just about me reclaiming my life. I hadn't realized it would become something bigger. Caroline called during lunch. "Mom, you're everywhere. It's insane. My professors are talking about you in class. My friends are freaking out. And Dad," she paused. "Dad's losing it. He's called me 6 times. I'm not answering." "Good. Let him sit with it." His firm is getting calls from reporters. People are asking if he knew, if he supported your career. There are already articles questioning how a lawyer could be so oblivious to his wife's professional life. The schadenfreude was delicious. How's he responding? According to his Instagram, he's still in Barbados pretending everything's normal. But Mom, his face in the photos looks like he's being held hostage. We both laughed. Hard. The kind of laughter that's partly hysteria, partly relief, partly the joy of watching someone who'd underestimated you finally understand what they'd lost. That evening, back at the penthouse, I opened a bottle of champagne, the good stuff, Dom Perignon I'd been saving for a special occasion, poured myself a glass and stood at the window, watching the city lights sparkle. My phone was still off. Richard was somewhere in the Caribbean, probably drunk and furious. Jennifer was probably realizing she'd won a man who was about to become a laughingstock. And I was here, finally visible, finally valued, finally free. The secret was out. Brooks was Claire Mitchell. The invisible consultant was a CEO. The dismissed housewife was a force. And the best part? This was only the beginning. Richard returned from Barbados on Wednesday. I knew because he showed up at the penthouse at 11 p.m., looking like he hadn't slept in days. I was in my study, my real study now, not hiding, when I heard his key in the lock. "Claire!" His voice echoed through the foyer. "Claire!" I took my time, finished my email, saved my work, checked my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back was poised, powerful, unafraid. I found him in the living room, pacing like a caged animal. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his usually perfect hair disheveled. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished. "You lied to me," he said when he saw me. "For years, you lied." "No," I corrected calmly. "I omitted. There's a difference." "That's bullshit, Claire. You had a whole secret career that you never asked about, that you never would have believed in if I'd told you, that you actively mocked whenever I tried to discuss my interest in economics." I sat in the wingback chair, the one he'd always claimed was his, and crossed my legs. "I didn't lie. You just stopped paying attention." His face flushed. "You made me look like a fool. Do you know what my partners are saying? What my clients are asking? They want to know how I didn't know my own wife was some business genius. They're questioning my judgment. That sounds like a you problem." "A me problem?" He laughed, bitter and sharp. "You've humiliated me publicly. You've destroyed my reputation. And you're acting like this is revenge for, what? Jennifer. The divorce. We've been unhappy for years, Claire. This is vindictive." I met his eyes. "This has nothing to do with you." "Bullshit. Richard." I kept my voice even, steady. "The CEO position was offered to me 6 months ago, before you asked for a divorce, before I knew about Jennifer, or at least before I acknowledged it. I accepted because I earned it, because I built this career over 15 years of hard work you were too blind to notice. Your ego is not my responsibility." He sank onto the sofa, head in his hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice was quieter now. "If you were this good, if you'd been working all this time, why keep it secret? You really don't know." He looked up, genuinely confused. I thought about that family dinner, about Jennifer in the grocery store, about 22 years of dismissal and condescension and being treated like a pleasant accessory to his important life. "Because you never would have believed me," I said finally. "You would have patted my head and told me it was cute that I wanted to help my little friends with their budgets. You would have made jokes about it at dinner parties. You would have diminished it until I believed it was diminished. So I kept it private. I let the work speak for itself. I wouldn't have—" "You did, Richard. Every single time I mentioned my interest in economics, in business, in anything beyond this house and our daughter, you laughed. You made me feel small. So I got big in secret. Silence. He stared at his hands. The divorce papers are signed, I said. My lawyer has them. You'll get your copy tomorrow. The Cape House stays with me. It was always mine. The investment accounts will split, though I suspect you'll find I've grown them beyond what you imagined. I want nothing from you except my freedom. And Caroline is an adult who can make her own decisions about relationships. But I think you'll find she's not particularly impressed with how you've handled things. He stood, straightened his jacket, tried to reclaim some dignity. So what now? You just, what? Ride off into the sunset as some corporate superhero while I'm left looking like an idiot who couldn't even recognize his wife's capabilities. You could try learning from this, I suggested. Might make you a better person. Might make your relationship with Jennifer more equitable. Might help you understand that underestimating people has consequences. This is because of her, isn't it? You're angry about... I don't care about Jennifer. And saying it, I realized it was true. She can have you. You can have her. None of that matters to me anymore. What matters is that I finally stopped waiting for your permission to be myself. He left shortly after that. Slammed the door like a petulant child. I listened to his footsteps fade, the elevator ding, the silence that followed. Then I called my lawyer. Emily, it's Claire. I need you to do something for me. Name it. Richard's going to fight the divorce terms. He's angry and embarrassed, and he's going to try to claim credit for my success, or argue that my earning potential should factor into alimony calculations in his favor. I need you to be ready. I've been documenting everything since you hired me. Every contract under E. Brooks. Every payment received. Every piece of correspondence proving this was your work, not his. If he tries to claim any part of your success, we'll bury him in evidence. Good. Also, I paused, considering. There's a clause in our prenup about infidelity. Proof of his affair means he forfeits certain assets. I have evidence. Emails, credit card statements, hotel receipts. I want it all documented. You're going scorched earth? No, I'm going protected. If Richard plays nice, I'll let it go. But if he tries to drag this out, tries to smear my reputation, or claim my career as somehow his achievement, I want the ammunition ready. Consider it done. Over the next week, I fortified every aspect of my new life, hired a personal assistant, set up a home office properly equipped for remote work, changed the locks on the penthouse, legally allowed since Richard had moved out and we were in divorce proceedings, transferred assets out of joint accounts into ones solely under my name. I wasn't being vindictive. I was being smart. Richard was a lawyer, a good one. He'd recover from his embarrassment and start strategizing. I needed to be 3 steps ahead. Caroline came home for the weekend, bringing flowers and champagne and her fierce protectiveness. Dad's been calling, she said over dinner, takeout sushi we ate on the living room floor, breaking every rule Richard had about eating in formal spaces. Asking me to talk to you, to tell you he deserves better than this. What did you say? I told him you deserve better than he ever gave you. Then I blocked his number. She grinned. I'm done playing middle ground. He made his choice when he started sleeping with Jennifer. You've made yours by finally standing up for yourself. I'm on your side. 100%. My throat tightened. You don't have to choose sides. He's still your father. And you're my mother. The parent who actually showed up. Who sacrificed. Who taught me to be strong and smart and ambitious. Dad taught me that success means stepping on people. You taught me it means lifting yourself up without tearing others down. Guess which lesson I value more? We spent the weekend planning my first day as CEO, going through my new company wardrobe, discussing strategy. Caroline had ideas, sharp ones, informed by her law studies and her generation's understanding of social dynamics. You should leverage this publicity, she said. The story's resonating because it's not just about you. It's about every woman who's been underestimated, every mom who's been dismissed. You could build an entire platform around supporting women in business who took non-traditional paths. I don't want to be a symbol, I admitted. I just want to do my job. Too late. You're already a symbol. But that doesn't mean you have to be defined by it. Use it. Shape it. Make it work for you instead of trying to avoid it. She was right. She was brilliant. And watching her, this confident, fierce young woman, I knew I'd done at least one thing perfectly in my life. By the time she left Sunday evening, I had a plan. Not for revenge. Revenge was beneath me. But for protection. For success. For building a life so complete, so fulfilling, that Richard's opinion of me would become irrelevant background noise. Monday morning, I started my first official day as CEO of Meridian Financial Group. Walked into that corner office with my head high, addressed my executive team with confidence, made decisions that would shape millions of dollars in investments. And Richard, he could deal with the consequences of underestimating me. I was done making myself small to fit his limitations. The confrontation happened 3 weeks later, on a gray November afternoon when Boston was suspended between autumn and winter. I was in my office at Meridian. Actually, in my office now, not pretending from coffee shops, when my assistant buzzed, "Ms. Mitchell, there's a Richard Mitchell in the lobby demanding to see you. Security is with him. Should I?" "Let him up," I said, "but have security wait outside my office." I had time to prepare, to save my work, straighten my desk, apply fresh lipstick. When Richard walked in, I was standing at the window, backlit by the gray harbor light, every inch the executive he'd never imagined I could be. He looked terrible, thinner, older. The polish was gone, replaced by something desperate. "Claire, Richard, you should have called first. You're not taking my calls." "No, I'm not." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "You have 5 minutes." He sat, looking around the office. The mahogany furniture, the original art, the view that stretched from Boston Harbor to the financial district. This office was bigger than his at the firm, better appointed, more powerful. I watched him register it all. "I came to apologize," he said finally. "All right. That's it? All right. What do you want me to say?" "Thank you." I sat in my chair, the CEO's chair, and folded my hands. "I appreciate the apology. Was there anything else?" "Jesus, Claire. Can you drop the Ice Queen act for 5 seconds? This isn't an act. This is who I am at work. Professional, focused, something you never bothered to notice I was capable of." He flinched. "I was wrong. About you. About us. About everything. I can admit that. That's progress. The divorce?" He leaned forward. "We could slow it down. Reconsider. I was hasty. I wasn't thinking clearly. We could try counseling. We could..." "No." "Just like that? No?" "Richard." I kept my voice gentle but firm. "This isn't about anger. It's not about revenge. It's about the simple fact that we don't work anymore. Maybe we never really did. You need someone who sees you as the center of their universe. I need someone who sees me as a partner, not an accessory. We're fundamentally incompatible. Because I underestimated you. Because you stopped seeing me as a person. I became a role. Wife, mother, hostess. Useful, but not vital. Not interesting. Not worth knowing beyond my function in your life." His jaw tightened. "And Jennifer, you're really fine with me, and I genuinely don't care who you're with. I wish you both happiness. I mean that. How can you be so calm?" "Because I'm happy," I said simply. "For the first time in years, maybe decades, I'm genuinely happy. I have work I love, a daughter I adore who's proud of me, a future that's entirely my own. Your approval or presence is no longer necessary for my contentment." He stood, paced to the window, stared out at the city. "My partners are talking about whether I should step down. My father barely speaks to me. He can't understand how I was married to you for 22 years and never realized you were brilliant. He thinks I'm a fool. Are you here for absolution?" "I'm here because..." He turned, and I saw something raw in his face. "Because I didn't know you. I was married to you for over 2 decades, and I didn't know you. How is that possible? You didn't ask, and when I tried to show you, you dismissed it. I want to know you now. Too late. Claire, the divorce is final in 2 weeks. You'll get your copy of the settlement tomorrow. I've been more than fair. You keep your firm, your accounts, your reputation such as it is. I keep the Cape House, my career, my independence. We split Caroline's trust fund evenly, though she doesn't need either of us financially anymore. It's done. What if I fight it? Then my lawyer releases evidence of your affair, the prenup's infidelity clause kicks in, and you lose significantly more. Your choice." I stood, walked to the door. "Your 5 minutes are up." He didn't move. "I loved you. In the beginning. I really did. I know. I loved you too, but love without respect isn't enough. And you stopped respecting me, if you ever truly did, the moment I became convenient instead of challenging. And this? He gestured at my office. This is you being challenging? No, this is me being myself. Finally, he left without another word. I watched from my window as he emerged on the street below, a small figure swallowed by the afternoon crowd. Once, he'd been my entire world. Now he was just a man I used to know, a chapter that was closing. My assistant buzzed. Ms. Mitchell, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes. I'll be right there. The meeting was about our Q4 strategy. I'd spent weeks preparing, analyzing markets, predicting trends, building presentations that would guide millions in investments. This was what I was good at, what I'd always been good at, what I'd been doing in secret for 15 years while Richard thought I was planning dinner parties. As I presented to the board, 12 powerful people hanging on my every word, taking notes, asking sharp questions I answered sharply. I thought about that family dinner. Margaret asking what I did with my time. Richard laughing at my consulting hobby. His father's patronizing curiosity. They'd be reading about this meeting in the Wall Street Journal next week. Meridian's bold new strategy under new leadership. Claire Mitchell's vision for sustainable growth. Let them read it. Let them see. Let them understand exactly what they'd dismissed. After the meeting, Thomas pulled me aside. You destroyed him in there. The board is officially in love with you. I wasn't trying to destroy anyone. I was just doing my job. Your job is making us rethink 20 years of strategy. It's magnificent. He paused. Richard showed up, I heard. News travels fast. It's a small city, smaller industry. People talk. He studied my face. You okay? I'm excellent. And I was. Richard's visit had been his last attempt at control, at claiming some piece of me he'd never actually owned. But I was done being claimed. Done being owned. Done being anything other than exactly who I'd fought to become. That night, I had dinner with Caroline at our favorite Italian place in the North End. She'd brought her new girlfriend, a brilliant computer science major named Sam, who made her laugh and challenged her and clearly adored her. So Dad showed up at your office? Caroline asked over pasta. He did. And nothing. He apologized. I accepted. The divorce proceeds as planned. Good. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand. You deserve so much better than spending your life making yourself small for a man who couldn't appreciate what he had. Sam nodded. My mom did that. Gave up everything for my dad. Now they're divorced and she's trying to figure out who she is at 55. You're doing it at 48. That takes courage. I smiled at this wise young woman my daughter had chosen. It takes desperation more than courage. I was drowning. This was survival. No, Caroline said fiercely. This was choosing yourself. That's not survival. That's revolution. Walking home later, the November air sharp and clean, I thought about that word. Revolution. The overthrow of one system for another. The claiming of power that was always yours but someone convinced you to surrender. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was revolution. My own personal uprising against limitations I'd accepted as permanent. Tomorrow, the Boston Business Journal would publish my first major interview as CEO. Tomorrow, my strategy would be implemented, affecting markets across the Northeast. Tomorrow, Claire Mitchell would solidify her place as a force in the financial world. But tonight, I was just a woman who'd finally stopped asking permission to be extraordinary. The penthouse was dark when I arrived. Empty. Mine. I poured myself wine, stood at the window watching the city pulse with life, and allowed myself to feel it. The pride, the satisfaction, the bone-deep rightness of finally inhabiting my own life. Richard had been wrong. I was everything without him. I'd always been everything. I just needed to believe it. 6 months later, spring returned to Boston, like a promise kept. The city shed its gray winter skin, trading it for cherry blossoms along the Commonwealth Avenue Mall and longer days that stretched gold across the harbor. I stood in my new apartment, smaller than the penthouse but entirely mine, watching the sunrise paint the Charles River pink and orange. The view was different from this side of Beacon Hill. Quieter, less ostentatious, more honest. Caroline had helped me move in over spring break, both of us laughing as we assembled IKEA furniture and ordered too much takeout and christened each room with champagne toasts. Sam had come too, and the three of us had stayed up late on my first night, sitting on the floor because I didn't have proper furniture yet, talking about everything and nothing. "This feels like you," Caroline had said, looking around at the bare walls and the boxes still unpacked. "Like actually you. Not some designer's idea of what a Mitchell should live in." She was right. The penthouse had been beautiful, but it had never been mine. This place, with its exposed brick, and its slightly creaky floors, and its perfectly imperfect light, this was home. The divorce had finalized in December. Richard had ultimately accepted the settlement without contest, though his lawyer had tried to negotiate better terms right up until the last minute. Emily had been ruthless, holding firm on every point, reminding them that we held all the cards, and Richard's best option was to sign gracefully. He'd signed. Not gracefully, but he'd signed. I'd sent him a bottle of wine afterward. A good one, but not expensive. A gesture that said, "We're done. We're fine. Let's move on." He'd sent back a note. "Thank you for 22 years. I'm sorry I didn't see you clearly. Be well, Claire." It was the most honest thing he'd said to me in years. At Meridian, the first quarter had exceeded every projection. My strategy was working. Sustainable growth, ethical investments, long-term thinking over short-term gains. The board was thrilled. The investors were confident. And I was proving every day that E. Brooks hadn't been a pseudonym. She'd been the real me all along, just waiting to be acknowledged. The publicity had eventually calmed, though I still got interview requests weekly. I'd learned to be selective, to control my narrative, to use the platform Caroline had predicted to actually help other women. I'd started a mentorship program at Meridian for women returning to the workforce after career breaks. I'd spoken at Caroline's school about non-traditional career paths. I'd written an op-ed for the Times about the invisible labor women perform and how we punish them for it. The response had been overwhelming. Thousands of women reaching out, sharing their stories, thanking me for making them feel seen, for proving that it wasn't too late, that brilliance didn't expire just because you'd taken time for family, that ambition could hibernate and resurface stronger. I'd become something I'd never intended, a symbol, but Caroline had been right about shaping it, about owning it, about making it work for me instead of against me. This morning, I had coffee with Thomas. He was stepping down fully in 2 weeks, moving to his place in Maine to write the memoir he'd always threatened to write and spend time with his grandchildren. "You've exceeded every hope I had for you," he said, his eyes bright with pride. "Meridian is in better shape than it's been in decades. The culture is shifting. People are energized. You've done that. We've done that," I corrected. "You built the foundation. I'm just building on it. Humble to the end." He laughed. "Listen, I want to tell you something. When I first realized E. Brooks was you, when you walked into that boardroom and I saw Richard Mitchell's wife standing there, I almost called the whole thing off. I must have looked shocked because he hurried on. Not because I doubted your abilities. I knew what you could do, but I worried you were doing this to prove something to him, to get back at him, to make a point. And leading a company to make a point is a recipe for disaster. What changed your mind? You did. When I asked why you wanted the position, you didn't mention him at all. You talked about the work, about what you could build, about the opportunity to operate in daylight instead of shadows. It was about you, your growth, your dreams, your ambitions, not about showing anyone up. That's still true, I said. Richard's reaction was a bonus, but it was never the point. I know. That's why you're succeeding. He raised his coffee cup. To Claire Mitchell, the woman who saved herself. We clinked cups, and I felt something settle in my chest. Peace, maybe. Or just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd done it. I'd reclaimed myself. I'd stepped into the light. I'd proven that it wasn't too late. It was never too late to become who you'd always been underneath. That evening, I had dinner with Caroline and Sam. They'd driven down from Cambridge, bubbling with news about summer plans and internships, and the future spreading before them like an open road. I got the offer, Caroline announced over appetizers. The public defender's office in Boston. I start after graduation. I hugged her, proud and terrified in the way of mothers everywhere. That's incredible, sweetheart. I want to do what you did, she said. Not the same thing, obviously, but I want to use my degree to help people who get dismissed, overlooked, underestimated. I want to fight for people the system doesn't see. My throat tightened. You'll be brilliant at it. I learned from the best. We talked late into the evening, these two young women full of fire and certainty, and me, still learning, still growing, still becoming. At 49, I was just getting started. The thought was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Walking back to my apartment later, the spring air soft and fragrant, I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, trapped in a dying marriage, hiding her brilliance, waiting for permission to exist fully. She felt like someone I'd known in another life. The woman I was now, this woman who walked these streets with her head high, who made decisions affecting millions, who inspired other women to reclaim their own power. She was real. She was solid. She was free. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi, Mom. It's me. Dad gave me your new number. I hope it's okay to reach out. Caroline's half-brother from Dad's first marriage." I stared at the message, surprised. Richard had been married briefly in his 20s before I'd met him. He rarely mentioned his son from that marriage, who'd been raised by his mother in California. I typed back, "Of course it's okay. How are you?" His response came quickly. "Good. Saw the articles about you. Pretty badass. I always wondered about the woman who married my dad. Glad one of us escaped with our dignity intact. Coffee sometime?" I smiled. I'd like that. New connections, new possibilities, new chapters written on blank pages. In my apartment, I poured wine and sat at my desk, the one I'd had delivered last week, solid oak and perfectly positioned to catch the morning light. On it sat my laptop, my planner, my notes for next week's board meeting, the tools of my trade, the evidence of my labor, the proof that I existed beyond anyone else's definition. On the wall above the desk, I'd hung my PhD certificate, the one I'd never finished, but whose research had shaped my entire career. Dr. Chen had tracked it down, had it formally issued based on my published work and my demonstrated expertise. "You earned this 20 years ago," she'd written in the card. Better late than never. Beside it, Caroline had framed the Boston Globe article, the one with my face and my story and the headline that had changed everything. These were my credentials, my proof, my legacy. But more than that, they were reminders that it's never too late, that brilliance doesn't expire, that you can lose yourself and find yourself again. Stronger for the journey. Richard had said I was nothing without him. The newspaper, and my life, and my work, and my fierce, brilliant daughter had said something different. They'd said I was everything I needed to be, exactly as I was, that I always had been, that I just needed the courage to believe it. Looking out at Boston, my city, my home, my territory now, I raised my glass to the woman in the window's reflection, to Claire Mitchell, to E. Brooks, to every version of myself I'd been and would become. "Here's to you," I whispered. "You magnificent, resilient, extraordinary woman. You did it." And the woman in the glass, CEO, mother, survivor, victor, smiled back. She knew.